Ever since he was a child, Sora has felt that there was something inside his body. It was either a spirit or a stranger staring at him from inside a cage. Sora believed that it was something special and that one day it would awaken within him. He was blessed to be born into a good family with a respectable lineage. Although his mother had passed away, he always hoped that one day he would awaken his special power and master his family's fan-fighting style. He would become the head of the Mitsurugi clan and protect the Gate of Monsters. However, one day, his father disinherited him, saying that he was not capable enough to learn the family's techniques. Therefore, he was banished from the island. His father lost faith in him. His younger brother took over as his successor, and his younger sister began to treat him like a stranger. However, it was hoped that when Sora reached the mainland, he would meet a worthy teacher. At that time, Sora was only 13 years old, and while huddled in the cargo hold of a merchant ship, he vowed to return to the island one day. 5 years later, in the town of Ishka in the kingdom of Canaria, Sora's adventurer status was revoked. The receptionist looked at him coldly. She wasn't joking and handed him a letter from the guildmaster. Sora checked the authenticity of the certificate, but he still believed it was a mistake. However, the receptionist informed him of a clause in the guild's regulations. Accordingly, if an adventurer did not advance within 3 years, he would be expelled. Sora had been demoted 3 years ago and had not yet passed rank 10, so he met the conditions for expulsion. Sora had no idea about this clause and wished he had been warned, but the receptionist just coldly said that it was clearly stated in the rulebook. Sora realized that she was really just trying to get rid of him. He could tell from the cold, contemptuous look in her eyes. To her, Sora was nothing but a useless eyesore. She said that the town of Ishka had long given adventurers preferential treatment, largely because they needed adventurers to protect them from monsters. Sora knew this too, and he had moved to Ishka precisely because he thought he could make a name for himself here as an adventurer. He wanted to prove to everyone back home that he could succeed. However, with the current situation, that dream was slowly slipping away from his grasp. The receptionist looked frustrated, saying that Sora should have been able to rank up easily in the past 3 years. When Sora complained about the rank-up fee, she replied that it only cost a single silver coin. She found it hard to believe that Sora had not earned a single silver coin in 3 years. All this time, Sora had been enjoying the privileges of being an adventurer. Judging from his weak reaction and unconvincing explanations, the receptionist thought that it was only right to expel him. Sora lamented how his luck had changed so quickly. Just yesterday, he had been welcomed into the guild, but now he had become an outcast. His adventurer identification card had not been returned, making him unable to receive rewards. Although there were other jobs in the city that he could do, most of them were maintenance jobs. If you accept to do those jobs, you will not be able to become stronger and will not be recognized. However, for the past 3 years, all Sora had done was pick herbs. It made him feel useful, but in reality, nothing had changed since he left his hometown 5 years ago. Sora felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He had never had a good relationship with the Adventurers Guild. He knew that people still called him a freeloader behind his back. Sora decided that it was time to move on. He summoned his level display, a magical mirror that reflected each person's abilities. It visualized and summarized a person's talents into a rank. His rank was the lowest value, level 1. Nothing had changed since he left the island. He hadn't made any progress. But that was usually what happened when you were just picking herbs. Sora wondered why things had turned out like this. 5 years ago, a man named Lars invited Sora to join his party. Lars explained that he wanted to improve the financial situation of his hometown. Lars was accompanied by 3 close friends: Ilya, a childhood friend and warrior priestess; Miroslav, a mage from a Falmount; and Luna Maria, a kind priestess. Lars formally invited Sora to join their party, the Falcon Sword. Sora felt that they were a friendly and lovable group. Although he wanted to join, the trauma of being abandoned by his family was still fresh in his mind. Thinking that he would be a burden, he tried to decline the invitation. However, Lars noticed Sora's dedication to swordsmanship, and he thought that Sora's movements were truly beautiful. Touched by Lars' sincerity, Sora agreed to join and was very happy to spend time with them. However, no matter how many monsters he killed or how many quests he completed, Sora's rank did not increase. Ilya had warned the group about a type of parasitic adventurer, people who infiltrated high-level parties to advance their ranks through the efforts of others. Sora knew that he could not hide his condition forever. He hoped that as friends they would sympathize and understand his situation. Sora frankly admitted to them that his rank had never increased. The confession immediately earned him suspicious and hostile looks. He was wrong. Almost everyone unanimously labeled Sora a parasite and a traitor for hiding this all this time. As a result, Sora was expelled from the Falcon Sword group, and his reputation as a level 1 parasite spread throughout the guild. Luna Maria, the more rational of the group, theorizes that Sora has encountered something called a talent limit. Sora recalls an ancient legend that says that one of his swordsman ancestors, who sealed the demon door 300 years ago, was forever locked at level 99. Luna Maria tells him that even legendary people have their limits, and Sora's limit is simply level 1. She tries to comfort him that there are other ways for non-adventurers to make a living. However, with the rumor of being a parasite, no one is willing to team up with him anymore, leading to a deadly spiral of money and prestige. Because of this, Sora is expelled from the Adventurers Guild. While wandering the streets, a thief snatches his bag. They glance at Sora and immediately realize that he is just a down-on-his-luck adventurer. There have been a lot of people like that lately. However, they found nothing of value in his bag except a few bottles of medicine and herbs. Sora demands his things back, but one of them shows him an illegal herb. Seeing that Sora seems to be an expert in gathering herbs, they want him to help them with their herb business. Although he knows this is wrong, Sora is desperate for any kind of work he can do. They tell Sora that the herbs they need can only be found in the deepest parts of the Tidus Forest. But none of the other adventurers they sent out have returned. They hope Sora will be an exception. Sora laments that he has been drawn into such a shady and completely illegal business as black market herb trading. He feels that this is how humans become corrupted. Struggling to hold on to what little sanity and dignity he has left, he tells himself that this is just another job for an adventurer. Sora went deep into the Tidus Forest, where he finally found and collected the herbs that the smugglers had requested. Sora took the opportunity to lightly inhale the scent of the herbs he had just collected. Immediately, he felt a sense of relaxation spread through him. In this brief moment of excitement, he came up with the idea of opening a herbal shop. He realized that there was a huge demand for herbs, so his business would definitely be profitable. This idea made Sora more excited, but the joy did not last long. Miroslav suddenly appeared and asked what he was doing in this remote place. While continuously throwing insults, Sora held back. This only made Miroslav insult him more. Fortunately, Lars stopped her before she could say anything more. Lars's Falcon Swords party is quite famous as a C-rank adventurer party. Since there are no A-rank parties and only 3 B-rank parties in Ishka, C-rank parties are usually made up of experienced veterans and are considered a gathering place for promising adventurers. Lars notices that Sora has been expelled from the guild and is still at the same rank as before. Seemingly concerned about his condition, Lars advises Sora to give up being an adventurer. Before being killed, Sora sarcastically thanks Lars for his advice, which angers Ilya. Sora quickly bows his head in apology, surprising even Ilya. Lars tries to ask his party to not bother with Sora anymore, but Miroslav still won't let it go, calling him a loser who hasn't bathed in 3 days. While Lars gathers everyone to prepare to leave, Luna Maria expresses her relief at seeing Sora alive and well. When Sora was with the adventurer party, Luna Maria was the only one who always treated him the same, for which he was very grateful. However, one night, shortly after being kicked out of the party, Sora overheard a conversation between Luna Maria and found out that she was the first one to call him a parasite. He also guessed that she had feelings for Lars. Before Sora left, Luna Maria warned him that many people had gone missing in the Tidus Forest. The forest was so vast that it could contain an entire country within it, and there were also legendary creatures lurking in its deepest parts. Although the Tidus Forest was known to be dangerous, there was also a C-rank adventurer party among those who had disappeared. The guild mobilized several C-rank adventurer parties to investigate, but so far, none of them had returned. Sora realized that these mediocre adventurer groups were being sent out on purpose, in order to cut down on the cost of hiring truly capable adventurers. Sora hesitantly thanked Luna Maria for the advice, but despite this worrying news, he didn't mind much. If this meant there would be fewer adventurers and fewer people gathering herbs, then his business would flourish. Sora continued to gather fragrant herbs and thought about opening a medicinal tea shop, since no one else in the city seemed to be doing so. Unbound by the guild's rules, Sora felt freer and happier than ever. As he relaxed under the cloudy sky, he sensed a change in the air. Sora stood up, knowing that something big was approaching. The wind began to blow strongly to the south, causing even low-level monsters to flee. Sora knew he shouldn't stay here any longer. He spotted the Falcon Sword group running towards him, trying to escape a giant insect. It was the disaster-class monster, the Lord of the Flies. The Lord of the Flies was an extremely dangerous monster, requiring the entire Royal Knight force of the kingdom to defeat. It was unheard of for it to appear in a place like this at a time like this. Although Lars and his party were talented adventurers, they were no match for the Insect Lord. Lars was injured in the initial attack, and found himself under a powerful paralysis effect. During the fight, Miroslav saw Sora nearby. Miroslav tried to stop the monster by using every powerful magic she had, but the creature simply deflected the attacks. She realized that she couldn't defeat it, but she didn't need to. If her only mission was to save herself, then she could do it easily. She fired a magic beam at Sora, who was completely helpless and defenseless. The reason why the Insect Lord was a terrifying monster wasn't just because of its power, but also because of its ability to reproduce. If left alone and allowed to lay eggs, it could give birth to countless monsters identical to itself. Civilization was once destroyed for this reason. The Insect Lord's method of reproduction was to lay eggs inside live prey, then bring that prey back to the nest. The best prey was a weakened prey. Sora was severely injured. His arm almost severed. The Insect Lord turned his attention to him. While screaming in pain, Sora tried his best to escape, cursing Miroslav for using him as bait. While the monster continued to attack him with painful stings, Sora muttered that his only dream was to spread his herbs throughout the country. But he remembered that was not his original goal. He reminded himself that he had to prove to everyone in his hometown that he could protect others with his sword. He must learn his family's fan sword style and prove it to them. Sora, because of his name, was ridiculed by the other members of his family for being brainless. Sora asked his mother why she named him that, and she replied that the sky is everywhere no matter where you go. She hoped that one day he would grow up to be as generous as the sky. She added that emptiness is not always bad. It can mean that a person can become everything. That is unimaginable potential. She encouraged him to seek his destiny beyond the Mitsurugi family. When Sora woke up, he found himself in a strange underground cave. He could feel a paralyzing substance spreading through his veins, but he could no longer sense the presence of the Insect Lord nearby. He heard a terrifying creaking sound nearby and was horrified to see a man being eaten alive by the monster's larvae. The monster captured its prey alive so that its young could eat them, but was careful not to kill the victim outright. Sora slowly realized that he was in the Insect Lord's nest, and its young were crawling towards him. They touched his fingers, then his arms, then his legs and feet like mosquitoes. They secreted a special substance to mask the pain as they sucked blood. If each of these larvae became an Insect Lord, not only Ishka but the entire Canaria kingdom would be destroyed. Sora was slowly being destroyed, despairing at the impending loss of his limbs. His life and ambitions would end here in a dark pit, in obscurity and insignificance. Sora cried out that he did not want to die. And in his final moments, he felt only regret. He wondered if he should have done things differently. Should he have given up the sword when it was clear that he had no talent? Perhaps he would not have fallen into this situation. The larvae touched, his mouth and then his throat. Now he could no longer scream. Sora could only scream in his mind. There was nothing but the silent echoes of his own thoughts, and the feeding sounds of 1,000 young ones. While being torn apart, Sora tried to find a way out of the predicament he had fallen into. But there was no way to stop. His arms were gone. His legs were gone too. Sora resigned himself to his fate. He had given up long ago. He should have given up sooner. However, Sora no longer recognized himself as Mitsurugi Sora. He saw no other way but to give up. A voice in Sora's head told him to consume the larvae. Sora felt puzzled, even if he ate dozens of them. He could not stop the remaining ones from eating the rest of him. The voice asked him if he wanted to sit still and let himself be consumed. Although the voice told him to struggle bravely until the end, Sora no longer had the strength to do so. The fact that he was useless was deeply engraved in his bones. The voice was angry at Sora. If Sora died, it said, Sora's father would not be able to hold back his laughter. Sora replied that his father would not laugh, because since he had left the island, he had already died to him. However, he knew that his brother would laugh, as well as Lars and Falcon Sword, the guild receptionist, and the people of Ishka. They were the ones Sora blamed and resented. If he died here, he would only become a laughingstock to everyone. Even the desire for revenge was not as strong as this pettiness. If he had to die, then at least he would fight to the end. He would not let himself die before his fate was decided. Sora began to eat the larvae by the dozens. He would eat as many as he could, as many as his body could handle. He had no other choice now. He laughed and wondered why he had not done such a crazy and daring thing sooner. If these larvae were going to eat him alive, then the solution was simple. He had to eat them before they ate him. But his anger did not stop there. He would destroy all those who had opposed him, all those who had looked down on him. In this moment of clarity, Sora understood the meaning of the name his mother had given him. He was the sky, the limitless sky. He had no boundaries and no limits. He must destroy them all. And the voice within him began to make a contract between them. Within his own soul, Sora met a dragon as large as a giant snake. Although they were separate beings, they were one and the same. The dragon gave Sora a name, and only Sora knew it. His body suddenly burned bright and hot. He did not know if it was his bones or his flesh that burned. The heat rose within his body, forcing him to find a way to escape. He had to scream, yell, roar. He had seen this happen before on his home island. This was how phantom sword users surpassed their limits, and now this power belonged to him. He activated his core, giving himself the power that had been dormant within him all this time, Soul Eater, and used it to devour everything. Sora's Mitsurugi clan required a bond to use the fan blade style. This allowed the user to kill powerful monsters, and it was something he had longed for since he was young. The power of the sun was in his palm. It was time for Sora to take to the sky. Sora raised his sword and unleashed Soul Eater into the monster's nest. The vortex rolled in, tearing everything in the cave apart, swallowing and tearing apart every last remaining larva. Every time Sora's sword cut through the insect's flesh, he felt a wave of pleasure. He wondered if this was one of the Soul Eater's abilities. The larva began to panic and run away from Sora, afraid of what he might do now. Sora looked down at the larvae. They rarely survived to adulthood because they were easy prey for other monsters. Sora wondered what would happen if the Lord of the Flies returned to its nest and found all its offspring dead. He would love to see the look on its face. Sora realized that all the adventurers who had gone missing so far had fallen prey to the Lord of the Flies, and with all the larvae he had killed. He could feel his body screaming with power, or rather the feeling of his body recovering as if it was being remade. Sora opened his level display and found that his level had actually gone up to 2. His limit wasn't 1. He speculated that this must be the effect of suddenly absorbing a large amount of experience after a long period of deprivation, but that wasn't all. His Soul Eater dragon was devouring the souls of the larvae and converting them into power. This meant that the nest full of larvae was like an unlimited buffet. A few minutes later, the Lord of the Flies appeared. Sora apologized to it for eating all of its children, complaining that they were too noisy. He scoffed that they probably begged their mother to save them. When the monster saw that its children were nothing but empty shells, it was furious. Sora, now filled with overwhelming power, thanked the monster for bringing him here. Without it, Sora would never have awakened his Soul Eater. The Lord of the Flies attacked, and compared to Sora's clumsy attempts to escape before, he now easily and gracefully jumped back and forth in the cave. His body felt lighter than ever. With each cut on the monster's body, Sora felt a wave of pleasure spread throughout his body. A part of its soul became a part of him. He laughed maniacally and growled at the Lord of the Flies, telling it to scream and beg for mercy, as it had done just 15 minutes ago. The Mitsurugi family's sword style, the Wind Dance Sword, emphasized powerful swings to crush enemies. However, because of this emphasis on power, Sora was never strong enough to use it properly. This power was necessary because the Mitsurugi clan was tasked with protecting the world from the Monster Gate, which meant that every member of the clan was a powerful warrior. Suddenly, Sora sensed that the Soul Eater's effects had weakened, and he deduced that as the Lord of the Flies began to retreat, its soul had also weakened. Its soul has also weakened. He took this as a sign to end the battle. He continued to tear the Lord of the Flies apart until it sensed its impending defeat and attempted to escape. Even so, Sora was careful not to underestimate the monster just because he had found an unbridled power. He would finish it off with a technique he had practiced since birth. This was a technique he had practiced all his life, created to destroy monsters like it. Sora unleashes the Wind Dance Sword technique, Gale, and the Lord of the Flies is finally torn apart, its once mighty wings reduced to shreds. Gale is a simple jumping attack, the staple of the split blade style. Sora thanks the Lord of the Flies for acting as a puppet to train his newfound power, and sends it into the afterlife to join its children. Sora delivers the final blow, and the Lord of the Flies' cry echoes throughout the forest. Sora gains a huge amount of experience and spirit energy from defeating the monster, but the points he previously gained pale in comparison to the points from this monster. However, he faces a new problem: how to get out of the monster's nest. During the battle, Sora uses K spirit energy to increase his physical strength. This is similar to mana, which is the main resource used by mages. However, mana is usually the better choice. For Sora's clan, it is different. Their split blade style relies on anima, a beast spirit within the body which is superior to mana. Since anima was discovered, many techniques have been developed around it, called K-arts, which are used to fight monsters. Thanks to the recent battle, Sora has now reached level 5. He feels very satisfied with this progress and moves on to the next problem: another victim that the Lord of the Flies has brought back to the nest. Upon closer observation, Sora realizes that this girl is not human, but a Kijin. The Kijin are an ancient race and enemies of humanity. Monsters are said to be the more advanced forms of these creatures. Nowadays, they are hunted for their horns, which contain immense magical power. Sora wondered what he would do with this girl. This was the first time Sora had seen a real Kijin. He had only heard rumors about the mystical creatures that lived in the forest. These rumors were now proven true. Sora carefully observed the Kijin and noticed that she was covered in mud, while her clothes couldn't even be called clothes. Actually, for someone who wasn't wearing anything, calling them clothes was an exaggeration. Sora grabbed the girl's horn, which would definitely bring in a large sum of money if someone sold it. He would have enough money to live comfortably for the rest of his life. Plus, the girl's soul seemed to be of very high quality. If Sora ate her soul right now, he could raise his level by 2, even 3. The Soul Eater Dragon asked Sora what he planned to do. In that moment, an endless hunger filled Sora, strong enough to make him attack the Kijin girl. But in a moment of clarity, Sora punched himself hard in the face. Sora blamed himself for even thinking of involving an innocent person in his bloody war. He didn't want to hurt anyone who had never wronged him. Sora hadn't been given the Soul Eater's power for a long time, but he could feel himself starting to change, as if he wasn't acting like himself anymore. However, change wasn't always bad. Sora felt more alive than ever, and he wondered if this was another effect of Soul Eater. Perhaps this was his true nature all along. He pushed these thoughts aside. His identities as a brave, idealistic adventurer and a ruthless avenger were both a part of himself, and that was why he had to learn to control his new powers. Sora's mind quickly returned to the current situation. The situation he was in was still dire. He noticed that the adventurer who had been eaten by the monster had been well-equipped, and recalled Luna Maria's words about a missing C-rank adventurer. Sora prayed for the deceased soul to rest in peace, and immediately began searching his body. Sora wonders if this makes him a bad person. But his desire to survive is much greater than maintaining honor. Asking the dead if honor is important, Sora puts on the dead man's clothes and he prepares to leave. However, Kijin finally wakes up, and she is surprised by Sora's appearance. He tries to explain to her that she was kidnapped by the Lord of the Flies, but she is still suspicious and wary of him, simply because he is wearing black clothes. Sora tries to see if the girl remembers anything. He explains that he killed the Lord of the Flies and that they are most likely in the mountain area of Titus Forest. The only way out seems to be through the cave inside, but normally a normal human would not be able to climb out. Sora is not a normal human. The climb up was an easy one. He just had to focus his K energy into his limbs. With the escape route secured, Sora invited Kijin to join him if she wanted. However, Kijin seemed unable to communicate properly with Sora, possibly because of the paralyzing venom still in her body. However, her determined gaze told Sora all he needed to know. He was surprised that Kijin wanted to come with him, given the history between their two peoples. He told her to hold onto his back, and he would climb out with them. Kijin jumped onto Sora's back, and together they flew into the sky. Sora had always wondered what it would be like to be reborn, and what he had experienced in the past few hours had given him a taste of it. When they reached the surface, Sora felt as if he had been hit by a truck. He had survived, which was enough to make him cry. But knowing that there was a girl on his back, he held back his emotions. He quickly checked on her condition, and Kijin thanked him for helping her. It had been a long time since Sora had received thanks instead of being called a parasite. This was what he had sought all his life: defeating monsters and receiving thanks for it. Sora offered to take Kijin to her home, but she was hesitant to tell a human where she lived. Instead, he suggested taking her under a mountain or a large tree. and she pointed out a chestnut tree in the distance. Unfortunately, Sora was not a botanist and could not distinguish between the different types of trees. With Kijin leading the way, Sora leaped through the forest in a flash, crossing large streams and valleys, soaring over ravines. Sora set the girl down while she picked some berries from the base of a tree, which seemed to have antidote effects. Although Sora had been an expert in gathering herbs for the past 3 years, he had never seen this kind of fruit before. They had a rough texture and an extremely strong sour taste. Kijin could now move and speak much better than before. While Sora was wondering if he could turn these berries into some kind of benefit, Kijin bowed his head to thank him for helping her and bringing her all the way here. Sora felt happy to finally be able to help someone. But the short time he spent with this young girl made him rethink his views on monsters. It turns out even some of them can be kind and civilized. With the job done, Sora prepared to leave, but Kajin still wanted to find a way to repay him. Sora said that he had easily obtained something worth 1,000 gold coins. Kijin finally told Sora his name, Suzume. Suzume asks him for his name, and he introduces himself as Sora. Suzume guides Sora back to Ishika City by following the Great Coil River. Sora has never been so deep into the forest before. Although he can sense magical creatures, they do not attack him. He realizes that this is because he has become the ultimate predator, at the top of the food chain. However, as time passes and the journey through the forest takes longer than expected, he begins to feel bored. He longs for a connection with humans. Suddenly, he hears human voices in the distance and rushes to investigate. He discovers a large army wearing the equipment of the Kingdom of Canaria. They are on their way to destroy the Lord of the Flies, but little does he know that Sora has already solved the problem. Sora guessed that Falcon's sword must have informed the city, causing the kingdom to send a military force to deal with the threat. In the midst of the army, Sora saw Lars, Lunamaria, Ilya, and Miroslav in the distance. Despite being injured and barely escaping last time, they still decided to join the hunting force. Sora was truly glad to see Falcon's sword was okay, but not because he was a good person. Sora planned to carry out a sweet, sweet revenge on them, and after it was done, there would be nothing left to bury. He wondered what was going through the minds of Falcon's sword as they marched with the soldiers. Did they join the force out of honor, out of duty, or out of revenge? Whatever the reason, Sora would make sure that all of them would be completely destroyed. But more than that, he wanted them to feel despair. He would devour them all. Sora's rampaging bloodlust temporarily allows his Soul Eater dragon to manifest, but he tries to restrain his anger. If he attacks them now, he will make himself an enemy of the Canaria Kingdom. He does not want that. His only target for revenge is the Falcon Sword. Sora does not want to simply kill them. He wants to humiliate them and destroy their reputation. Sora steps forward in front of the soldiers and waves at them, asking for help, and claiming that he has just escaped from the Lord of the Flies. The city of Ishka serves as a strong defense to protect the Canaria Kingdom from external threats, including the Titus Forest. Because of its strategic importance and dependence on resources, the city has also become a major commercial center. Adventurers become the city's main means of gathering resources, which means that the most important organization, right after the local government, is the Salvation Guild. And now, Sora is in it. In a strange twist of fate, Sora publicly accuses Falcon's sword of attacking him and leaving him for dead while fleeing from the Lord of the Flies. A middleman is present to facilitate this encounter. However, Lars finds it hard to believe, and Sora does not blame him because he knows that he was affected by the monster's paralyzing poison. Lars suggests that Miroslav's magic only hit Sora due to a bit of bad luck, which Sora finds humorous and derisive. He mocks Lars's solid reasoning and poses a question to his former leader. Because everyone while fleeing from the Lord of the Flies, Sora wonders how it is possible that a spell accidentally hit him when the target should have been behind them. Even a child new to magic would not make such an amateurish mistake. The receptionist sternly reminded Sora that they were only here to confirm the truth, not to criticize each other. She asked him to stop his rude and insulting words, but Sora only laughed, pointing out that they had brought him here to find a way to refute his accusations and protect their own interests. He pointed out that she had not said a word about punishing the Falcon Sword. All she had done was ask him to ignore the incident or lower his voice. Sora felt glad that he was on the opposite side of the sword this time. Miroslav firmly asked Sora what he needed to feel satisfied, and he suggested that they go straight to the Holy Temple and tell their great priest that one of their mages had used another person as bait to save his life. Sora realized that he should have done it from the beginning. The great priest possessed a skill called lie detection, which would tell them that he wasn't lying. This would be better than just staring at each other without doing anything. Sora smirked and asked if that could be arranged. Miroslav suddenly stood up and told him to lead the others out. But Sora argued that they were as guilty as she was, since none of them would help him. He accused them all of being murderers, which stung them more than they thought. Sora accused her, Lars, and Ilya of conspiring against him, but Miroslav justified his decision by referring to past precedents. Miroslav recounted an old case in which a sailor was shipwrecked at sea and had to cling to a piece of driftwood to survive. A second sailor tries to share the piece of wood with him, but since there is only room for one, the first sailor is forced to refuse. The second sailor drowns, and although the first sailor confesses to the incident, he is later acquitted at trial. However, as soon as Miroslav mentions the case, she reveals her guilt. She indirectly admits to attacking Sora on purpose, and he asks Lars if he realizes it. Miroslav realizes her mistake and apologizes to Lars, explaining that she was just desperate to save him, and attacking Sora was the only thing she could think of. Lars responds kindly to her, saying that she is not at fault. The two share a kind hug, causing Lars to decide to take responsibility for what happened. He is willing to bow his head and kneel if that's what Sora wants. Sora tells Lars to stand aside and let him kill Miroslav, which would settle things. Not only that, Sora wants to deal with her before doing so. Lars objects to Sora's idea of reparations, but Sora argues that Lars has agreed to do whatever it takes to make things right. He wants to kill Miroslav because she tried to kill him. Lars points out that Sora is still alive, so there is no need to kill her. Sora counters that he only survived because of his own strength and luck. The fact remains that Miroslav tried to kill. Lars still insists that Miroslav didn't actually kill anyone. So Sora poses a small question to him. He asks Lars if he stabbed Lars in the heart, but a priest happened by and cast a resurrection spell in time. Would Lars's resurrection erase the fact that a crime had been committed? Sora counters with Lars's own reasoning, pointing out that resurrection doesn't erase the fact that a crime had been committed. Lars is stunned, speechless, but Ilya is not one to back down easily. Ilya points out that Sora only suffered an injury to his arm, and that demanding someone's life to compensate for a short-term injury is insane. Sora feels overwhelmed. Her reasoning is reasonable, but he is not completely defeated. He argues that having his arm torn off is more cruel than killing him outright. Lars asks Sora to explain, and inevitably asks Ilya to explain on his behalf, as she always does. Lars turns to Ilya and asks her to explain what Sora is saying. Ilya hesitantly explains that the Lord of the Flies has a paralyzing venom that drags its victims back to their nests while they are eaten alive. Sora adds that he was lucky to have escaped, and he wants them to understand the despair he felt at that moment. Lars tells Sora not to say another word against his friends, but Sora is not yet convinced. This trial is not over, at least not until Lars has a mental breakdown. Sora asks Lars if he ever wondered why his team members chased after him. Sora understands why everyone acted like that. There was a chance to defeat the Lord of the Flies, but casualties were unavoidable. When Lars was first attacked, the first thing everyone thought of was to save him, which is why everyone started looking for Sora in the first place. Sora points out that Miroslav, who specializes in fire magic, intentionally only uses wind magic. The reason is that fire magic will kill him. Miroslav knows that the Lord of the Flies only cares about the survivors, so she makes sure that the magic she uses will not kill Sora. It's all just bait. Sora exclaims that despite the cruel treatment he received at the hands of Falcon Sword, he never left Ishka's side. Miroslav hates him the most, and from there he figures out her motives. He has enough evidence to accuse Miroslav. Lars tries to convince Sora as a former comrade, but Sora reminds him of what he said when they met in Titus Forest, that he has nothing to do with them anymore. Despite this, Miroslav continues to assert her innocence, saying that she only attacked Sora as an emergency measure. Sora decides to provoke him a little more by pointing out that Miroslav only said these things because she has feelings for Lars. Miroslav denies the accusations and threatens to use her influence as the daughter of the guild president to make Sora pay. Sora doesn't believe her threats and has no intention of withdrawing his accusations. He requests that a priest with the ability to detect lies be brought in, which would settle the matter once and for all. Miroslav's true intentions will be exposed, despite her attempts to feign innocence. The room falls silent. The receptionist reminds Sora that requesting such a priest will require a large payment, up to 20 silver coins. Up to 20 silver coins. And she asks if he has enough money in his pocket. The receptionist pushes the issue of payment. and forces Sora to take responsibility for it himself. Sora asks Miroslav or Lars if they can chip in, but neither of them wants to. Sora sighed, and the receptionist assumed that he would withdraw his accusation. However, that was not the case. Sora placed a large stack of gold coins on the table, causing the room to fall silent in surprise. When asked where he got the money, Sora explained that he had robbed the money from the King of Flies' Nest. Sora chuckled, knowing that they all thought he was too poor to pay the priest himself. He glared at the receptionist and told her to get up and call the priest immediately. Sweet revenge. He thanked her for kicking him out the day before, as that had created a domino effect, leading to his finding a huge amount of treasure. Suddenly, the room froze under an unbelievable amount of pressure. Sora's Soul Eater fully appeared. Suddenly, the door swung open, hitting Sora in the back and ruining his cool posture. A well-dressed man entered, asking Sora if he was from the Lord of the Flies' Nest.